Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Jennifer Reece on the podcast. She's an IFBB figure pro coming to us all the way from the Great White North that is Canada. She's a little bit near Fort McMurray. So anyone, like I told her before we started recording the podcast, I'm only familiar with that from FUBAR 2. So if you've seen that, she's close to that area. But yeah, she's our current guest and she's on to share her health and fitness journey. And we couldn't be more than happy to talk to her. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on.
It's my pleasure.
So first of all, I got to ask, what's the weather like up in your neck of the woods right now?
It's cold. It's actually not too bad today. I think we're at like -6 or -9, but it was about -40 here for a good few weeks.
Are we talking Celsius or Fahrenheit?
The cold one.
Oh yeah, because everyone, if you forget Canada, they use Celsius. When it's cold. It's cold either way. We'll just leave it at that. But before we both depress everyone with our winter woes, because it's like honestly, we just think like, why do we even live in these places that we do? Why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and start this lifestyle, and how that led to you deciding to give bodybuilding a try?
I was always interested in kind of fitness from when I was young. I can remember working out with my dad in the garage when I was just little. Obviously, I wasn't training, he was, but that was my first memory of really kind of getting interested in working out. I wasn't a super athletic child, so all throughout grade school and high school, I was kind of interested in sports. Didn't really have the confidence to get into the team sports or anything like that. I didn't have a background. Like I said, I wasn't super athletic, so it was intimidating to me. And then I ended up in my last year of high school, the school started up a rugby team, so it was brand new. So less intimidating because nobody knew what they were doing. So I jumped in on that and I played rugby there for a season. Fast forward, I went away to university, joined the rugby team there. So I played varsity rugby for the University of Windsor. And I also played for a town of Markham just outside of Toronto during the summertime. So that was really kind of what got me started. And then during my university years, I started hitting the gym. But I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was one of those people that would just go into the gym and start here and use every machine all the way around through. And then I would go do an hour of cardio on the bike and an hour of cardio on the treadmill and go home and, no joke, starving student, but would go home and eat a pot of cream of wheat because I thought it was fat-free and that was okay. So I was eating enough carbs for an entire track team pretty much. So you can imagine I wasn't in the greatest of shape, but yeah, so I was doing that and I was reading Muscle Mag and looking at, all the girls back then and really admiring their physiques. So I kind of started learning a little bit more here and there and here and there. And then I happened to meet, when I was done my university degree, I just happened to meet a few people. My roommate was training with a guy who was doing a competition. So the three of us started working out together. And then next thing you know, they were telling me, they're like, you know what, you're going to do a bodybuilding competition. And I was like, no way. Like I'd been to one, but I'm like, no way. And they're like, yeah, you got to do it. And I'm the kind of person, I like to kind of just do new things. And, I don't always decide to, but when I decide to do something, I put everything into it. So I did it. And that was it. I fell in love with it. There was only 3 girls in the competition. There was a girl who looked amazing and was super muscular. And this was a bodybuilding show. I do figure now, but my first one was a bodybuilding show. So I took second. But I was so happy. I honestly, I just fell in love with it. And it's kind of grown from there. So.
That's awesome. I mean, one of the biggest myths that we love to bust on this podcast is, I always say it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there are still so many women who unfortunately have that fear where if they walk into the gym and they pick up one weight, they're just going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And, I always say to that, send me all of your tips and tricks. I mean, I would pay my entire life savings just to talk to you for 5 minutes, just because you have found the secret that so many people are looking for. And I mean, there couldn't be a myth more further from the truth. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting it started in college? And even if you didn't, I mean, being that, you compete now and you're in the gym very often, do you get that a lot? And how do you like to respond to that if you ever hear that complaint from people?
I do. I was never worried about that personally because I can remember going through the magazines being like, I want her arms and I want her abs and I love her legs. So I've always liked a muscular look, and I was never afraid that I would become too muscular because I was kind of tiny. So, um, but I hear that from women in the gym and things like that. And I'm a dental hygienist, so my clients obviously they see me when I go to get them to bring them in to have their teeth cleaned, and they're like, "Whoa, you work out!" So obviously it starts conversation, and oftentimes, the women are like, "Oh, I'd love to have a bit better arms, but I don't want to be too muscular like you." And if it were only that easy, obviously we all know that it's not like you go to the gym for a week or two and all of a sudden you're jacked.
And
We
again,
wish.
if that does happen to you, give me a call. Like if there's anyone out there who's listening and that's happened to them, I am very interested in talking to you. So yeah, give me your information then. But one of the things that I always find is so fascinating is the genetic factor, because especially in this day and age with Instagram and social media where everyone is just comparing themselves to each other and saying, like you're talking about looking in magazines and being like, oh, I want her arms or I want his abs or I want their legs. I mean, people just don't realize that you can only be the best version of yourself. You don't know what other people are doing to get those results. And it just your genetic, I mean, everyone else is so different. So there's no way that you're going to be able to look just like someone. But a question that I love to ask on top of that is, I mean, so many people when they get started in the gym, I mean, everyone when they get started in the gym, actually, you always are going to have that one body part that really, really takes off when you start training. And then you're going to have that one body part that just lags behind that you have to train into an absolute oblivion, basically, to get it to catch up to everything. I'll give you my examples first. I mean, my back, just because I had jobs all throughout college of lifting and loading heavy packages, but I'm also 6'3", just so, I mean, anything lower body, anything legs, I am just shot where, I mean, I said I could train legs every single day for the whole day and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, with calves, I could inject pure muscle in my calves and they wouldn't grow. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
You know what? My arms are just genetically, I'm just genetically gifted with the structure. Like I've had, male bodybuilders, oh, I love your arms and just the way the muscle is shaped and their full muscle bellies. So I don't train arms. I used to, but I don't train arms anymore. It's been years. If I did, they'd be humongous, so they just grow. Um, Other body parts, I've had a little bit of trouble bringing my shoulders up. I feel like your legs can never be, the quad sweep can never be big enough, stuff like that. So, but what I find is just learning how to train the muscle. Not every muscle responds the same way to the same type of training, and not even for every body type. So for me, for shoulders, high volume. When I was trying to do heavy weight, they weren't really responding as much. So high volume, frequent training, and they grow like that. So I find it's more a matter of learning exactly the specifics to what that muscle needs to grow. And then you don't have those issues of lagging body parts. In my experience, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of guys complain about calves, but I find, again, I don't train calves at all. But if I did, I would train them much like I train my shoulders. So I think, there's similar muscle types where it's high volume and not necessarily the heavy weight.
Can I just say this is total BS that she hasn't trained arms in the last few years and her arms still look like that? Everyone, that's just, you hit the genetic jackpot, basically. That's just absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, you're the second guest that we've had on that doesn't train arms anymore, and there was another figure guest too, because I think with figure especially, you don't want to have, you don't want to have physique girl arms because that's not going to end well. You're not going to look as proportionate. So yeah, but that is, believe me, I mean, yeah, if any guy hears that you have arms like that and you don't train him, okay, that's just automatically, that's like, okay, she's my least favorite person on the planet just because you don't know how lucky that is. But that is just, yeah, that's awesome. And I love asking that question because the answers vary so much that it really helps prove by fact that, I mean, everyone's body's different. You're not going to be able to look like someone else.
No, and that's the thing. Like, yeah, I'm gifted with my arms, but they're useless to me in my sport because exactly in figure, you don't want the big arms. So yes, genetically gifted, but it's wasted on me. So I trade them with someone if I could. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, absolutely. And it just shows that a lot of people differentiate in their body types, but the biggest thing that is never talked about as much as it should be, I think, is the nutritional aspect of bodybuilding. I mean, it is by far, I agree with the, guests that I've had on that said, it's 80% nutrition, 20% working out, 85%, some people have said, and 15%, but it is vastly more important, your nutrition, than the working out. What would you say is probably some of the bigger nutritional changes that you had to make to your lifestyle when you really started taking things seriously in the gym?
Oh, I've made so many changes. And to be honest with you, I've learned so much over the years. The way I train now, my nutrition is key. Nutrition and rest. Those are the two things that are most important. Rest, I make sure I get enough sleep. I'm always getting a minimum of 7.5 hours of napping whenever I can. But as far as nutrition, I really, really cleaned it up. Even in the last couple of years, I'm always improving. But my vitamins, I'm down. I get most of my nutrition from food. I don't use a lot of supplements or anything like that. I try to keep it all natural. My coach has been a godsend. So like I've been working with him for 3 years now, and he's taught me so much. So we just take everything from a very natural standpoint, and like cutting out all the aspartame, like all of the sweeteners, the food dyes, the additives, the processed foods. My diet is so completely clean. Sometimes to my detriment, because it's almost been like I compare it to if you take a Honda Civic and you soup it up and you make it into a race car. Well, now you got to put premium gas in it all the time, right? So for me, because I eat so clean and everything is so calculated, like I only drink water. If I drink water, it's with lemon in it. There's no pops. I'm human. I have a secret love of Diet Pepsi. So I may sneak one here or there, but absolutely, like, I pay for it because, like I said, my body is now, a Formula One race car, and here I'm dumping Diet Pepsi in it, and it doesn't work very well. So, I've completely cleaned out all of the crap. As far as even alcohol goes, I might consume alcohol maybe twice a year. I was in university. We've all been there. The pub, the this, the that, whatever. So, but been there, done that. Now it's okay. New Year's Eve, my birthday. Yeah, okay, maybe we'll drink. And Halloween is my other night. But literally, everything is clean 95% of the time.
What is your alcohol tolerance like if you're only drinking 2 to 3 times a year? Is it really, really low?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's low. I don't hold up well.
See, well, that's the same thing with me too. Where like I only drink probably like 6 or 7 times out of the year, but when I do, my tolerance is so low that I'm not spending that much money, which I like. You save a lot of money then if you have a low tolerance. I mean, when I was younger, my friends, I would always give them a hard time if they had a low tolerance, but I realized that they were winning the entire time because they weren't having $100 checks that they or $100 receipts that they have to pay the next morning on their credit card. So yeah, that's actually a good thing in the long run. But I mean, with this whole lifestyle too, it is so much more of a mental battle than it is a physical battle because you can convince your body to work out. I mean, your body can go to the gym constantly, but the mental aspect of it is so much harder where it's getting up every morning. It's having that positive attitude where, I can do this and just dragging yourself out of bed on those days. What has that been like for you, really having to adjust that mindset so that because especially when you're on prep, where I mean, you have to get all of your workouts in, you have to eat perfectly almost. What is that like, that mental adjustment, like when you really have to turn things up a notch and just really just focus so much on it?
I've really learned over the years, and every prep is very different. Um, but I've grown so much as a person and as an athlete. And now I'm almost militant with the way I do things, as many competitors are. But I have, as far as like my mental state, I wake up in the morning, I have a routine. I don't talk to anybody before, I set my intentions for the day. I get my head straight. I listen to a lot of positive podcasts, YouTube stuff, motivational stuff, just whatever I feel that I need at that time. And then I'm off to do my cardio. So I'm in my zone. And then it's after that I'll do my Instagram, check my emails, talk to my friends, do whatever, let things from the outside in. So I'm already set on my path. I've also started incorporating a lot of yoga and meditation into my life. So I find that really helps as well because it really helps you to like push out the bad stuff and keep focused and keep the good things in, and keep your energized and motivated and moving forward, right? But not from a negative, stressful position because you can go a long way on amped up on just stress, like negative stress and worry, and like I've got to lose weight and and that can keep you going for quite a long time, but eventually you'll burn out. So my whole take on things is, doing a lot of inward stuff, and then I had that motivation, and it's coming from a place of happiness and joy and love for the sport. Even though it gets tough, it's going to get tough. You're going to have good days and bad days, but I can deal with them a lot better. And I'm not moving and working from a negative place.
Absolutely. Well, and extra for that stress too. I mean, that's going to cause you to maybe keep on some weight or even gain weight. Because I mean, people do not understand the impact that stress has on weight. Because I've had times too where I've been stressed out with doing this, working out, having my regular 40-hour a week job. Sometimes I just feel like I'm so swamped, and then when I'm working out, I realize, oh, I actually gained 2 pounds this week. It's like, what the hell? And then I realize, well, I spent the whole time thinking about stuff or whatever. The stress might be a benefit of it, but yeah, it is such an underpreached thing about just how much a positive mindset can actually help you, just even when it comes to losing weight, not even with anything else. But I just find that so fascinating. But I gotta ask, because I'm one of those people where I hate cardio more than anything else in my life. I mean, it's just I'm not good with it. What is your relationship with cardio like?
Um, I don't love it. I mean, on certain types of cardio in certain days, yeah, because your endorphins going in or whatever. But in a perfect world, nobody'd have to do cardio and you just do it once in a while. But I find things that I like. So I love spin class, and like I went to spin class this morning, and then I hit a yoga class afterwards, and I'll go train later. But for my cardio, I really enjoy the spin because all you have to do is get out of bed and get there. And you're going to feel amazing after. And it's a group activity. So even though they're not competitors, it's just, there's a really great vibe in there. The teacher's pushing you. So you can just literally turn your brain off and do what you're supposed to do. And the music's pumping and the lights are going. And next thing you know, it's over. And you've just done 45 minutes or an hour or whatever, however long the class is. And it's great. I can only do that on my days off from work. So I also have to hit the gym in the mornings. I have an elliptical and a treadmill for the mornings, where I tend to use that more at night if I'm doing nighttime cardio, which I'm not right now. But some of the mornings, if I'm really dragging, okay, I'll hop on here. But I like to get to the gym because the vibe is there, right? And it's just, I'm a people person, and I thrive off energy. So it's hard to get the same amount of energy when you're by yourself and you got the Netflix going and you're just whatever, watching TV basically while you're moving. I like to go to the gym, get amped up and do that. So I do a lot of the Stairmaster, stuff like that. Unfortunately, as prep goes further, because I'm currently in prep, I will have to take out the spin classes because you just burn too much, right? And I don't want to whittle away to nothing. So I'll have to pull it back, and then it'll be more treadmill, and I call it the gauntlet, the Stairmaster that rotates. So yeah. But you know what? It's all like, you start and maybe your first couple days are like, oh, this sucks. But you build up so quickly to like, I can pop into the gym, bust off 45 minutes on that thing before I even know it, because you're just so used to it. Your body just acclimatizes to it. Plus, it's the competitor mindset. It's not like, oh, I kind of have to do this, so I might do it or I might not. It's no, like I'm doing this. There's not a question about it. So there's no point in dreading it the whole time. Let's find a good thing about it, come from it from a place of, yeah, like I'm enjoying this. And even though it's kind of hard and horrible if you're doing it right, but I find joy in that. It's just like, because it's hard and then you overcome that and you've accomplished something. So you got to look at it from that perspective.
Well, absolutely. I always say, if you just get through just one prep, I mean, you feel like you can take on the world. You feel like you can do anything, because just getting through that is just a big enough accomplishment as it is. But yeah, for me, my cardio, I mean, if I could go on bike rides all the time, I would. But obviously in this weather, I can't. So that's my favorite form of cardio, where, yeah, just running on a treadmill. I mean, yeah, it gets so boring after a while. But how long have you been into yoga? Have you always been doing yoga?
You know what? I've been into yoga for years. I just haven't done it consistently. So, years and years and years ago, I hit a class here and there or whatever, because I used to be a fitness competitor. So I was trying to do that in addition to the gymnastics. And I didn't grow up doing gymnastics. I put myself in gymnastics when I was 20 years old. So there's a lot of crying in gymnastics, as far as I'm concerned. But it was great. But I started doing yoga then to try to become more flexible, to help me with my routines and stuff. So, but like I said, I didn't consistently stick with it. I've been doing it now for a good 6 months religiously. And I love it. I've noticed, my flexibility is better than it was when I was back doing the fitness competitions way back when. And it's just helping me so much. It's helping me to relax and stay zen. And also with my lifts, it's helping me because I'm so much more stretched out and mobile. And I think it's really going to help with my posing come next show. So it's just great. I'm a huge advocate of yoga, especially yoga for bodybuilders.
Yep. That's one thing that we've heard that has surprised me a lot is, that yoga, yeah, it does really go well with bodybuilding. And I always, I have one friend who keeps asking me all the time, "Oh, Ryan, come to yoga with us," but it's at 5:30 in the morning. I'm sorry. I'm not getting up that early. I'm a normal person. I'm not a bodybuilder that has to get up at 4 a.m. I always said, even if my house is on fire, it's a 50 chance that I'll get up at 5:30 in the morning. I mean, I am just not a morning person at all. But yeah, I've definitely, if there were some later classes that I could go with friends with, I might definitely look into that. But the biggest thing that I was the most shocked by, that I would have never guessed in a million years before I started this podcast, but now, I can totally understand why, is that for so many of these competitors, posing is the hardest thing. It's harder than your working out. It's harder than your nutrition. I mean, so many times we've heard that, where now I like to compare it to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
I was never great at posing, and posing is so key because you can have the perfect physique, but if you can't display it properly, nobody's going to see it. And the girl you're standing next to, who might not have as good of a physique but knows how to present hers, is going to look better than you, and you're going to lose to her every single time. So you have to know how to accentuate your positive and hide your flaws. I mean, we all have little ones here and there, right? So little tweaks. It's different for everybody, but it's absolutely paramount to competing. And to be able to hold the poses too, because the rounds go, you might be up there for 10 or 15 seconds doing your quarter turns. You might be up there for 10 or 15 minutes. And it's happened to me where, at the New York Pro last year, we were around and around and around and around. And the girls, we were all dying by the time we got off. So if you don't practice that and you're not prepared for that, you're not going to stand up, in that lineup for that long. So for me, like I said, I was never a great poser. So I did what I think everyone should do, is get a posing coach. So, and my posing has improved tenfold. I owe him my pro card. If I hadn't have hired him on for posing, I mean, also my nutrition and training coach as well. But if I hadn't hired my posing coach on, I wouldn't have been able to display all the work I had done with my actual coach for that whole time, So it's key. I recommend everybody get a posing coach. You may think you're a great poser, but there's always someone that's practicing more and posing better, and it's a work in progress. So I think a posing coach is key. The other thing that I do now, which I never did in previous years, is I pose every day. I don't necessarily take time out of my day specifically for posing every single day, but what I'll do is when I go to the gym, it doesn't matter what I'm training, I will, at least for the very first few exercises, do a set, pose, do a set, pose, do a set, pose. So I'm constantly doing my little presentation routine and practicing my posing. And this has helped me incredibly. I can't even say, because for example, I did the Toronto Pro last year, and we all know they give you the lineup of the order of everyone, the divisions for the show. And these are subject to change. Nothing is ever absolute. So I've never had this experience, but we were backstage at the prejudging, and I think it was the fitness girls, then the bikini girls, and then figure. So I'm waiting, I'm ready. Like, you have a certain process that you have to go through, right? You've got to eat your little bit of peanut butter and your carbs and whatever. And then you got to get your glaze on and your bikini bit and your suit bit, whatever, and pump up. Well, they changed the order, but they changed the order like that second. So I went from laying down with my legs up against, on a chair, just chilling out, to all of a sudden they're like, figures on stage now. So I jumped up. I was super flustered. Everybody was super flustered. I bent right over, grabbed my dumbbells, and started pumping up while I was trying to get glazed. Like, it was a mess. They basically shuffled us all out on stage, quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn, came off. Well, because, we're a bit dehydrated and I was panicked and I had bent right over after laying with my legs up. So all the blood had rushed, like my body couldn't regulate itself and I fainted basically. So I said to someone, I'm like, I think I'm going to pass out. And they put a chair underneath me and yeah, I passed out. So at this point, I was still in line to go out on stage to do my presentation round. So the line is getting shorter and shorter. So I've woken up and they're fanning me with a cereal box. So I was lucky that, the competitors and the people backstage are such sweethearts because they could have left me and been like, she's out. But they helped me. So they kind of brought me back. Well, I'm watching the line get shorter and shorter and shorter. And it's seconds away from me being able to go out. And I'm still fuzzy, and they're like, can you stand up? And I said, yeah. So I stood up and I walked out on stage because it was my turn. And I just flowed and I did my whole little presentation round because I had practiced it every single day. My body knew what to do because my head was not there. I just went really slow and I was breathing. And the whole time I was like, just don't pass out. Just don't pass out. You have people here that have come to see you. Just don't pass out. So if I hadn't practiced that, there is no way I would have successfully been able to execute that. And you know what? Nobody knew. And the pictures came out great. And I did it perfectly. And absolutely nobody could tell that I had literally just been unconscious. So I credit my continuous practice. So people will see me in the gym and I'll be posing in between sets. And sometimes I think they're probably like, oh, there's that girl again. She's just constantly posing and into herself. But no, I'm not. I'm just literally trying to practice and get it in my head. So
that is such a great story. We have never. So I'm not recommending it, everyone, but I mean, she passed out and she was able to pull through and get it. So I mean, maybe someone else might want to look into that. No, but that's just so amazing. And again, that just shows the hard work and dedication that the sport requires. That I mean, you have yourself dieted down so low and just everything else that goes into the sport just to be able to go up on stage for, sometimes only a couple minutes, sometimes longer than that. But I mean, it just shows how dedicated these athletes are. But out of your figure poses, I know that there are only 4 of them, but what is your favorite pose to do and what is your least favorite pose to do?
You know what? My front pose is my favorite. Just because in that moment, I'm literally staring at everybody. I love that. Like, I'm just there. I hit my pose. You've done the work. You hit the pose and I'm looking around and everyone's looking at you. I mean, they're looking at everybody else on the stage too, but it's just like, that's your glory moment, So I love that. My least favorite pose is probably my back pose, but that's just because I'm always trying to make sure I'm up. Like you can't see yourself. So, but I had a really hard time getting my lats to pop out. That's something that I'm always trying to get them out more. So that's why it's a little frustrating for me. So if I had to pick a least favorite, I still like it, but if I had to pick a least favorite, that would be it.
I always said if I ever competed, the back pose would be my favorite just because that's the one where you can let your smile down a little bit. You don't have to, you can let your jaw muscles relax. But now, a fun question, as you can see, I'm one of the palest people that you ever meet in your entire life. I mean, my thick Norwegian skin, I go outside, and I'm either going to get burnt to an absolute crisp or I'm going to get farmer's tan, where let's be honest, farmer's tan is not a real tan. But so I've never been like really tanned a day in my life, but bodybuilders get to get tan. So I always got to ask, what is that feeling like when you get that tan on, even though, it's not a natural tan, but and you really see, we hear so many stories about how you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that feeling like for you when you get that final coat on, you realize, oh my God, I've accomplished this and I'm ready to go on stage now?
Oh, it's fantastic. I don't like the process of prepping for the show because peak week is difficult. I don't think anyone enjoys standing there and trying to air dry after you've been tanned. But when you go back up, and that's when I go back up to the room, I put my suit on and I send my video to my coach of the final package. And it's awesome because exactly like you said, you can see all of the little details. It's just, you see all the work that you've put in that year and the years prior. And it just all comes together nicely with a little bow on it and some rhinestones. But it's awesome. There's no greater feeling, really. I love competing. I love everything about it. So even the things I don't like at that specific time or that specific day, I still love the whole process of it. I still wouldn't change it for anything. So yeah, that's a great feeling. It's a great moment when you see all of that.
Well, and that's awesome. And I mean, a question that I ask all my guests, whether they be my up and coming bands or my health and fitness, for my bands, I always ask, what is that feeling like when you get to walk up on stage and, perform live in front of hundreds to thousands of people? That also applies to the bodybuilders that I have on. What is that feeling like when you get to walk up on stage and show off all of that hard work that you've worked months upon months, even years on?
Oh, it's great. It's great. I've never really had, I used to get really nervous going on stage when I was doing fitness. The bikini rounds, nothing. I could stay in a bikini at the mall. I don't care. But when I had to do a fitness routine, I was freaked right out. Like that would give me so much anxiety because I wasn't as comfortable as I was in a gymnast, right? So now that I don't have to do that, I have no problem with the whole thing. And it's funny because I was at a UFC fight not too long ago with some friends of mine, and we're watching the fights, and they athletes, like the fighters, were coming out, and I said to my one girlfriend, I said, that'd be so amazing to walk out in a stadium full of people and everyone's looking at you and the music's going. I'm like, can I do that? So, and I mean, like, I'd like to do it at bigger and bigger venues, but I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what I do. I mean, obviously, the competitions I've done are not on the same scale as the UFC fight, but it's still that feeling, right? It's an amazing feeling, and it's I'm always make sure that I'm ready for the shows because to me, the only reason to be nervous is if you're not confident in your physique. And if you're not confident in your physique, you shouldn't be there. So I will never let that happen. I will never show up less than, because that's the worst feeling in the world. Feeling like looking around and going, oh, that girl looks really good and that girl looks really good. And I don't want to go out on stage, you know? So I would never let that happen. So for me, it's just an amazing feeling.
Absolutely, and that's really, I think, the attitude that you need to have, especially if you want to last in this sport for a while. But a question that I like to ask all of the pros on the podcast, because for anyone out there who might not be familiar, when you win your pro card, a lot of times that is the highlight of these athletes' careers, just because that is the affirmation that all that hard work that they put in has come to fruition. I mean, they can compete in pro shows now. What was that feeling like for you when they announced your name and you realized, oh my God, I'm a pro now?
I was so happy. I was kind of relieved because I had been at the top level in Canada for a really long time. And I don't know if anyone knows, it's a little bit better now where there's more opportunity to get a pro card in Canada. But up until 2 years ago, there was literally only one, maybe two given per division per athlete in the entire country. So there are a lot of athletes, or have been a lot of athletes, that are at that level that would have very easily gotten a pro card years ago in the States, but because of the system in Canada, it's like you kind of have to wait your turn. It's turned around and improved a lot now. But in my opinion, anytime I was on stage, there was at least 5 or 6 amazing athletes that could have had their pro card that day, right? So when I finally got it, after having taken first and second and third and at the national level, I was just like, thank God, it's over. Like I can move on now because I felt like I was just waiting to get over that hurdle, right? Like and when I did get it, a lot of people said to me, "Oh, so you're going to take a year off?" I'm like, "Why would I take a year off? Like, I've been waiting to get past this step for a long time." And in my opinion, they wouldn't give you the pro card if they didn't think you should stand on the pro stage. So logic says to me, why would you take a year off? Because they're telling you you're good enough to be there. And without having stood on the pro stage and been able to compare yourself at that level, what do you know that you're going to work on that year? You're going to take a year off to work on, to guess of what you're supposed to do and where you need to be when you might have been perfect the whole time. Not perfect, nobody's perfect, but you might have been great, heading right to the pro stage. So I think bodybuilding a little bit more, yeah, you want to take some time off and maybe put on some size, but it's different for figure. You're not necessarily like putting on a lot of muscle or taking off a lot of muscle. You're just tweaking things. So when I got that pro card, I was like, finally, here we go. Let's pick a show, like a pro show. Obviously, I took some time to relax and recover because I had done 3 shows that season. I think June, July, and October, taking first and second. And I took first 3 times basically, and then got there. So I had a long competition season. So I needed to take a break, but I picked the first pro show that I thought I wanted to do, and just went and did it.
That, that's awesome. And I mean, another one of the big myths that I love to bust on this podcast is, I mean, so many people don't understand that that look that you guys put on stage, that is not a sustainable look. You're not going to be able to keep that look 24/7. And I think a lot of it is, people might watch shows like Biggest Loser or other weight loss journeys where they see people lose weight and they see that sometimes they're able to keep that weight off, and they just assume that maybe, oh, for bodybuilders, that must be the same thing because they work just as hard and, they get their body to look so awesome, but they don't realize that that is just all through a lot of manipulation. I mean, it's through all these other things that, I mean, first of all, you're at your unhealthiest when you walk on that stage. People don't understand that. They think that you might be at your strongest, but in reality, you aren't. But what has that journey been like for you when you first realized that, hey, this look, I'm not going to be able to sustain this look? And has it gotten easier for you to accept that as your career has gone on?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's kind of like you take your medicine and you do what you need to do, basically. So if you want to change things about your physique, you need to take that time off to do that. Otherwise you're not going to progress, right? So you just that you get used to it. That's what it is. When I did my very first show, nobody explained that to me. So I literally, and I mean, I was a lot younger and I was a lot smaller. So just to put in perspective, I stand on stage now at about 135 pounds. I was 115 pounds. So, I was almost see-through. But basically, I had come from being a totally like just an average normal girl to being completely shredded. I didn't have a lot of muscle, but I was super shredded. And nobody explained to me that that's not reality, right? So I did the show. I put on a ton of weight really quickly because I started eating again, and my first prep wasn't the greatest, looking back. I mean, I was eating about 800 calories at the end, doing 2 hours of cardio. So of course, that's why I was almost see-through. But, so I rebounded huge and I didn't know what to do. So like I said, I gave away all of my clothes and had a hard time with this like weight gain. So I didn't know what to do. So I put myself back into another prep and did another show because that's all I knew how to do. So but that was a long, long time ago. And I really learned, like, over the years, you learn your body. You learn that it's not like that. The sport's evolved so much since then, just with the knowledge of nutrition and training and everything. So now it's fine. My weight doesn't fluctuate too much. We all like to be, wish we could stay, have a six pack all year round. And some people are lucky enough to do that, but I'm not one of those people. And I'm fine with it. I've just got a wardrobe for all seasons.
Yeah. Well, and that's great to have too, because wardrobes, when it comes to bodybuilding, your wardrobe is going to be humongous with the amount of choices that you're going to have, just because your body is ever changing. I mean, that's one of my favorite questions to ask is, how are you able to compensate for that? Are there any tips and tricks that you like to tell people if they want to get into bodybuilding on how they should best, afford their wardrobe? Because it's going to be very expensive if you're going to need to buy, all these different sizes and shapes.
Yeah, stretchy pants. Jeggings, stretchy pants are great. But yeah, a lot of comfortable stuff. I think most people probably say the same thing. I mean, for me, I'm training. I don't train every day, but I'm either training or going to yoga or whatever. So I'm in yoga pants or workout pants most of the time. And then I go to my job as a hygienist where I also wear yoga pants. So I'm pretty much in yoga pants.
Hey, that works as well. But if we were to track, a week of your workouts, what does your general week look like when it comes to your workouts and the what exercises you do, or I mean, what body parts you do on certain days? Do you like to mix things up, or do you have it always set in schedule? Or like, oh, on Monday it's always going to be legs, or on Tuesday it's always going to be arms. What's your weekly basis look like?
I let things like I have a couple of days that are kind of floating days where I can change things around if I need to or I want to. My workout schedule kind of fits with my work schedule. So I work really long days on certain days in my office. So I might put in an 11-hour shift at my office, which means I'm gone from the house for 12 or 13 hours, depending. So, usually Mondays and Thursdays are our long days. So I'll do yoga those days because that way I'm not taxed. It's hard when you've just put in a really long shift at work to get focused to go have a really good back workout. It's just not, it's counterproductive. So I find if I just take those as my yoga days, that's great. So, Tuesdays and Wednesdays will either be legs or shoulder. I'll always do legs, but it'll be either shoulders or back. And then I'll hit like, back, back, shoulders, and legs are always again on Sundays because I'm doing legs twice a week. So Sundays are my days where I'll hit a yoga class, but it's geared towards hips and hammies. So it's a lot of really good leg stretching and getting really into the hips and getting things moving. So then I'll do that, and then I'll go train legs later. That way I'm nice and stretched out. So Sundays is always leg day.
Well, good luck to you later tonight then for legs then, because I always say that is, I always hate, I mean, I still to this day, even though I've trained them for, 7-8 years, still the next morning, it still hurts to walk sometimes. It all just depends. But yeah, legs have always been, like I said, the bane of my existence and the bane of so many people's existence. But one of the training techniques that I've really, taken to heart since I started this podcast, I mean, I use it a little bit, but I wasn't that familiar with it, was time under tension. Do you like to use a lot of time under tension in your working out?
Yeah, I do. Especially with legs. I'll do legs twice a week, and one will be more hamstring focused and one will be more quad focused. But then I'll also switch it up and I'll do high volume time under tension versus, sometimes I'll do like just a really heavy, like, get it out kind of workout. And especially for shoulders, time under tension as well, right? So I try to incorporate a lot of like different training. And so if it's like, say today, for example, if it's time to go do like a really heavy quad focused workout, which it is, and I find that, my legs are sore and tired and not really recovered from my last leg workout as much or whatever, for whatever reason, I won't push it. I'll just go in, do some volume, get something done, get some blood in the muscle, whatever, and then hit it hard next time, because you really have to listen to your body. I don't see the benefit of, trying to get it out and push. That's how you get injured. You just wear yourself out. If your body's still trying to recover and it's not at 100%, why would you go throw another huge load at it to deal with, right? So my coach has taught me this, over the years, that more is not always better. Sometimes it's better to just dial it back. Sometimes, it's better to just not even go at all. He's had a couple times during different preps where about 3 weeks out, even 2 weeks out, he said, okay, you know what? Take 2 days off the gym. Don't do cardio. Don't do anything. Put your feet up. Watch movies. And that is so hard mentally to do. I'm like, but nothing. And he's like, no, nothing. I'm like, but the show's in 2 weeks. No, nothing. I want you to rest. And as an athlete and a competitive person and someone with a lot of drive, that is worse than having to go work out when you're tired, because now you're just sitting there, and 2 days can feel like an eternity to a competitor. You're checking the mirror, like, am I even still a bodybuilder? You miss 2 days, like, but it's right because it's right before a competition. So that plays with your mind, but sometimes that's just absolutely what your body needs. And I find whenever I've done that and I go to bed and you wake up, say that's a Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, you wake up Monday morning, you're even more lean and you feel amazing. So you really, really have to know and listen to what your body wants. And that's why I feel everyone should have a coach, because it's at those moments, like, I can listen to my body and understand what it needs, in the off season and even in contest prep. But when you get close to a show, you're not able to do that as well. Like, so if I'm not going to tell myself, oh, I'm just going to stay home today. I need a coach to do that, because like many competitors, I think every competitor, you're focused on that show and you're focused on your placing and you just want to go, 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 go. So you need someone to oversee that when you're going to push yourself too hard or eat too little, or or for the people who cheat and eat too much, so, but that's just,
Yeah, it is. Again, yeah, it is just such a mind games that you have to play, because yeah, like you said, if I was working out all the time and then all of a sudden 2 days you gotta just sit and relax, that I've had days when I really was in shape, in college, and really took things seriously, yeah, where if I even went one day off where I didn't even, because I would do a 7-day thing where I would lift only about 5 of those days, and then cardio and just other things the other 2 days, just to go up and do something. But literally, yeah, if I'd spend even 1 or 2 days, yeah, it would be very hard for me to not just want to go do something, because yeah, it just gets so ingrained in you. But there were so many positive things that happened happened to me when I started working out and getting bigger and stronger. But the one negative thing is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water or anything that's sealed on tight. You're the go-to strength person. I'm still at home with my parents for the next 2 months before I move out, and every single time that they come home with groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in the groceries myself. Has that been a similar experience with you, especially maybe at your job, where people just take one look at you and they just assume that you can do favors for them?
Well, one, I don't answer the phone, so I avoid all of that. But not so much at my job. You know what? I love my job, and I love the people that I work with. I've worked at my office now for 6 years, and they understand my lifestyle, and they're super, super supportive. So, yeah, I don't think they would ask me to do something like that. They'd probably be afraid I'd bite their heads off.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
all
No, well,
seriousness,
no, I always say too. I mean, it's like being a guy; it's a double-edged sword because, well, especially being 6'3", where I mean, I could have zero muscle at all, and I'd still get asked to do stuff all the time. So it's one thing that I've really had to get used to. But I mean, you're not the average looking woman. So I mean, if you walk out in the street, I mean, I always say bodybuilders when they're out in public, I mean, it's sort of like a mini celebrity because people just get so fascinated by what they're seeing because it's not of the normal. So what has that experience been like for you when it comes to maybe drawing attention in public if you walk out, especially in the summertime? Like if you're all bundled up like you are right now, it's not as visible as it would be during the summertime. But what has that experience been like? And has it gotten easier for you to accept that you might get glances or stares as your career's gone on?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I was younger, I didn't like it as much, because you just see people, and then you don't know what they're thinking, but you just see people staring at you, and it used to bother me sometimes, and I'm like, why are they staring at me? But this is you're younger, and you're more insecure when you're younger too, right? So and I'm going way back, but no, I've just kind of gotten used to it. Like if I go to Costco, almost every time I go to Costco, some woman will come up to me and be like, "I love your arms," or whatever, blah blah blah. And, it's you just have to accept that people don't see it that often, and it's a compliment, And even for people who don't like it, whatever, that's their thing. There's a lid for every pot, and I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea for sure, right? So, it doesn't really bother me so much anymore at all. I take it as a compliment. I have noticed though when I'm in prep, if I'm in the grocery store, I'll see people looking in my cart because they want to know what I'm what I'm buying, right? So, or they'll ask me like, "Why are you buying so much asparagus? You must really love asparagus." Um, so I've noticed that, I actually had, there was a trainer at the gym here that was a friend of mine, and he moved back to the Philippines, and he texted me and he's like, "What you been eating lately?" And I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because someone texted me and said that you had a whole bunch of junk in your grocery cart at the grocery store." And I was like, "I didn't even see anyone I know." So, and I know the specific day that they were talking about because um, Iris Kyle, the Olympian bodybuilder. So I was sending her some of the she loves the ketchup crispy minis, and so I had a whole cart full of them because I was sending them to her in Vegas, and so they thought I was eating probably a steady diet of crispy minis, which would be delicious, but no, I don't get to eat those at all. But anyway, so people are keeping an eye out, which is funny,
Yeah,
but I take it as a
Oh, yeah. I would too. Yeah, I mean, yeah, all these things. Yeah, if you look at it through that lens, I mean, it just makes your life so much easier. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can't change the fact that, yeah, like you said, this is the first time that people might be seeing someone like that, so they're just curious. So, yeah, I mean, I totally understand that. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, Jennifer, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
You know what? I would give it more recognition and credibility. I feel like, you know, other athletes in other sports, and I know bodybuilding is an individual sport, it's not a team sport, but if you look at like football players or whatever, they get a lot more, there's just a lot more financial backing, sponsorship, exposure. It's more mainstream. So I would like to see that for bodybuilding. I know I'm comparing apples and oranges, but I just feel like, I wish the sport had a bit more credibility and a bit more financial backing because people think that, oh yeah, I've obviously never been to the Olympia, but you see the Olympians and you think, oh yeah, you've been to the Olympia and you make so much money and blah blah blah. And people have said that to me too, but it's very expensive to compete. It's not. I'm not making millions here. So I have a full-time career. You know, to support and help fund what I love to do, which is my second career and my passion, right? So, but if people think that they're going to get into competing and it's going to be their main source of income, that's not very realistic. So that's something that I would change. I feel like if the sport had more exposure and it was a little bit more mainstream, then that would help the athletes, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a lot of work, and they put in, the same amount, or I'm not going to say more work, but the same amount of effort and dedication as other athletes, and people who are starting to get to the Olympics and things like that, right? So, and even if you, just talking to people like friends and family, and some of my friends and family know now and accept what I do and are very supportive. But I've had people say, "Oh, when are you going to quit this?" Or you can just eat a little bit of this, and you can miss your workout. It's not that big of a deal." And I say to them, if I was training for the Olympics, would you say the same thing to me? Would you tell me I don't need to waste money on a coach? Would you tell me that it's okay to take practice off? No, right? So it's not looked at the same, and that's something I would change for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always say, unless you're like an Iris Kyle, yeah, you cannot make enough money to really sustain yourself on this sport. I mean, if they could add on, a few zeros at the end of all the prize money that they're giving out, that I think would really, really help the sport. And I always said, could you imagine if they were giving out like $10 million to the person who won the Olympia? How much harder people would work and what the packages would look like then? Like if they really added that. I mean, I think if you want to make the sport even bigger, yeah, you definitely need to have that financial backing. So yeah, I agree with you, 1000%. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, what are some goals or what are some things that you'd like to have achieved a year from now if we were to talk to you?
A year from now, well, my goal for this year is to become Olympia qualified and stand on that Olympia stage 2020. So I'm hoping a year from now I can say that, and that I'll be prepping for the 2021 Arnold's. So if it doesn't happen this year, that will be my goal for next year. But I believe in setting big goals, and there's no reason that I can't achieve that. Like I said, it may not be in my time frame, which is this year, and fingers crossed I'm putting in the work. But there's certain factors I can't control, right? So all I can do is what I can do, and I'm doing it. But yeah, so hopefully, that happens this year. But if not, next year, will be the
Yeah.
goal as well. So
Well, and yeah, and I cannot wish you more than the best of luck on that because I mean, yeah, it's so inspiring to see people, really go after their dreams like that. And I mean, again, we wish you nothing but the best. And do you have anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
well, I want to say thank you to my coach, Manny Torres, because he's been absolutely amazing. He's been a godsend, and he's really changed my life. He's changed my training, and we're in this journey together, and I couldn't be happier. He's an amazing man and an amazing coach. So I'd like to, say thank you to him, and also to my best friend Paul. So Paul, I'll just tell you a little bit about him briefly. He was a bodybuilder, and he was diagnosed with leukemia, and he didn't know at the time that he was given a 3% chance of living. So he survived, and he's 100% now. He's back in the gym, and he's just amazing, for doing that. And he's an amazing person. But why I want to say thank you to him is because throughout my whole prep last year, the year before, but especially even when he had leukemia and he was in the hospital, he was my rock. So he was the guy that I would call when I was having an emotional, like, I can't believe I'm frustrated or whatever, or I'm just down today. And, imagine calling your best friend in the hospital when he's fighting for his life and you're worried about your body fat percentage. So, but he never once complained, and that made me sound like a horrible person, but he actually, thanked me for that because it gave him something, to focus on, and he knows that he's there for me and I'm there for him. So I can't say thank you to him enough because he's part of my drive to get to the Olympia, because I know that was his goal, to be a professional bodybuilder and work his way up, and he won't be able to do that now. So, that's part of the reason that I want to do it for myself, but he's definitely a motivating factor, so I want to say thank you to him too.
Yeah, That's such a great story, and yeah, we wish him nothing but the best as well. Wow, I was not aware of that, so that is just, yeah, and talk about a great thing for motivation for you. I mean, that's about as good as it can get. But yeah, that's just, yeah, that's such a great story. And again, we wish him nothing but the best. And Jennifer, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story. I mean, I love having guests come on and talk about their experiences, because a lot of times in the general public, people don't get to really have face to face with bodybuilders, because one, because they're so rare, and secondly, because there's all these misconceptions where it's all, oh, they're so vain and they just like to work out all the time, and they're so into themselves. Where if I can just have one guest on to help disprove that, I love saying that, because in my experience, bodybuilders have been some of the nicest people on the planet that I've ever met. I mean, they're more than willing to help out others, and they really seem to care about people deep down, and they really are just invested in helping out others, which is one of the most rewarding things you can do in your lifetime. And yeah, it was such an honor to have you on, and so great to have you to hear your story. And again, we wish you nothing but the best of luck, and thank you again for coming on.
Oh, thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, again, you guys go and give her a follow. I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below. Warning to everyone out there, you will get inspired. Stop eating those Twinkies and get off the couch, and start exercising a little bit. But again, you guys, this is Jennifer Reece, and this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.